It is a great honor and a privilege to introduce Ruth Vleeschouwer, and your maiden name was Falek, and we're here in your beautiful apartment in Jerusalem. And Ruth, if you could just mention a little bit about your background and your family.
Okay, thank you. I was born in Germany, in Köln, from a family who lived for centuries in Germany. In 1935, so it was already in Hitler Germany. The first thing is that my parents wanted to give me the name of Hannah. There was a lady from Palestine at that time who came to Germany to talk to families to send their children to Palestine. And my mother was very impressed by this lady, and she wanted to give me the name of Hannah. And when my father came in Köln to the, I don't know how do you say that, the official place where you have to write down names, the German there said, Hannah is not one of the names you can give your daughter, you are Jewish, and we have a list of 10 names. You have to choose between the 10 names. So my father did choose the name of Ruth. So from then my name is Ruth. So it is given from Hitler. I was in Germany until I was almost 3 years. Before my parents went to Holland, they asked for allowance to leave Germany, and from then there was a telephone ring every hour in the night from the Nazis, and I did wake up and cried. That is what my parents told me. And they couldn't close the telephone because it was from the town hall. It was not allowed to do that. That is one of the earliest stories. My parents did get a visa for Holland. My father went there to rent a house, apartment. When he did that, we could send our furniture, and we did. And then my mother and me went by train with the goal to go to Holland. At the border with Holland, and we speak about 38, we were stopped, and the person who is doing the control of the border control said, you can't come in Holland. Yesterday they made a law in Holland that they will not allow any Germans to come in Holland, including Jews. So we were sent back to Köln, what was dangerous because all people who get an allowance to leave and didn't leave were in a danger to send to camps. We slept a night in a hotel, and from there we went, an uncle of me brought us over the border with Belgium, and from there to the border of Belgium and Holland. And before the border in Belgium he left us, and my mother and me went walking through the fields to Holland, and where my father waited for us. and from then we lived in Holland. We were 2 years about. We lived in Den Haag, that is a town next to the seaside. And then when the Germans came in 1940, all foreigners had to leave the seaside towns. And we went to Utrecht in the middle of Holland, where the Jewish Kehla community gave us an address from people who were willing to give us a room. There we lived a year and a half until February 42, when we got the invitation to go to Westerbork. My parents did think beforehand already what to do if that would happen, and they thought about going in hiding. One of the problems of being an immigrant was that they didn't have friends and they didn't have family, and they did very little work experience, so they didn't have addresses, and there was still not organized possibilities to get addresses. So that was very difficult. And we got the invitation for Westerbork very early. What I heard from my family, because we were German Jews, and they gave the addresses first. And also my parents told me always that the only one who did have our address was the Jewish community, because we were not officially in Holland. So I did grow up with quite a few question marks about the Jewish Dutch community. I was hidden from February 42 until the end of the war. From that, the last half year with my parents, and the other almost 3 years alone in 13 different places.
Can I ask, who hid you? Do you know the names of the family, or do you remember?
First we went to family Onk, that are the parents of a medical student who lived in the same house where we lived, and her parents were willing to have us for a few weeks. They didn't know that it was a hiding, that we were visiting them. That gave my parents some time, and then the pediatrician for me advised for a children home, Zonneschijn, a home where they looked after children mostly who were sick or had eating problems, and they were willing to take me. I was there the first Jewish child. Later they did take a lot of Jewish children. It is a place where I was almost a year.
And during that time, did you have contact with your parents?
Not with my father. My father, next that he was Jewish, he was also in the age that they sent young men to Germany to work, and instead of Germans who went in the army. So he couldn't be in the street anyway. My mother was always doing all kinds of things, and later she did do a lot of work, underground work, and she came to visit me. But she never did know beforehand, and I didn't know when she would come, but she did come. And one night she had a dream that Germans went in the children home, and she went the next day when she woke up. She went and she did take me out, and a few days later the Germans came there, and for children, and one of the directors were sent to Auschwitz. So I was saved by her dream. From that place, one of the problems was that I couldn't go to school, and the other kids, the non-Jewish children, went to school. So I didn't have to do something in daytime. I was quite alone. That's what I remember. I don't know if it's really like that. That I didn't like the food and was pressed to eat.
And Ruth, what did you do during the day when the children went to school?
What I remember is that I didn't have to do anything. But I know that at the end of the war, when I went to school, I could read, and I did have some basic knowledge of mathematics. So I did do something, but for my feeling, I didn't do anything. I didn't have a task. I didn't have to go with other children. But the children came back from school and we could play. But,
and did you get on well with the other children? Did you interact well?
I don't know. I learned that I was an only child, and I was used to save. When I was eating, I saved the best bite for the end. And when I was in the children home, other children would take it for me. So I did learn not to do that anymore, not to save things, what I wanted to eat later. What I want to eat, I should eat immediately. But I don't know. I don't have remembrance really what I did. I think that because I was in so much places and I learned from very young, not to speak.
Did the other children know that you were Jewish?
Also that I don't know. I still had my name, Ruth. I know that because a few years ago from Yad Vashem I got, when I gave the story of my mother to Yad Vashem, they gave me photographs of a girl in Zonneschijn who was at that time 16, who photographed us, and she wrote our name. So it was clear that I still had my own name. I got at the end of that period, before I went to the next place, I got papers with a different name, and that was Maria Druiven. That was papers what my parents bought, and so that would be the name at the rest of my hiding. But I think probably people didn't know it, children didn't know it, but I don't know. they must have given some reason why I didn't go to school. So I don't know.
And when you met your mother, when she would come and visit you, you recall those meetings?
I don't recall it. I don't know. I don't know how she brought me there. I don't know how she did take me there. I don't remember if she explained me why I'm there and why I don't see my father. There are things that I don't remember. I was in psychoanalytic treatment for long years and I don't remember.
It's very traumatic. It's not a... But from the orphanage, you went into another hiding with your new name?
I got a new name, and I do remember that my mother trained me to, even when I wake you up in the middle of the night and they ask you what is your name, you say Maria Druiven. And you tell, I had to remember the names of my parents and I had to remember the names of brother and sister. And I remember that I did know it so well that at the end of the war I didn't remember my own name anymore. That when my mother after the war told me, Maria is not your name, Marietje is not your name is Ruth. I said I don't want that name because it has a sound, a German sound, the U. So they decided to call me Ruth, the Dutch way of expression. And that is, I was until the end of high school, and then I was Zionistic, and I decided I want to be back Ruth. Wow. So also my name is a war story. Yeah. So my mother did take me, and she didn't have a place for me at that time because it was suddenly that she had to take me. And I was for a few days in a lady who helped my parents with cleaning, and I was a few days with her. I don't remember her name. And then my parents did get a place in a Catholic cloister, how do you say it?
Like a monastery?
Monastery, yes. In a monastery. But on the monastery was only willing to take me when my parents didn't know where it was, anonymous, because they thought it was too dangerous. So my mother had to bring me to someone she did know, and he would bring me to another place and they would bring me to the monastery, and that is what happened. It was in the south of Holland. A monastery where they had more girls. It was the nurses, how do you call them?
The nuns?
The nuns of the monastery were from Germany. It was a monastery in Holland, but they came from Germany. They did speak between each other German.
And you could understand?
I could understand, and I understood that they said to each other, she is here because her parents died. So I cried for 3 weeks. That is what they told me. Until one of the nuns understood that I did understand them, and told me that it was not true that my parents were living and that they just wanted to hide me. And so I calmed down. I remember from there, it was it were nuns who lived in a poor way. It was where there an imamim there. So the food was simple for all of us. The other girls were non-Jewish, as far as I know. I remember the church. I remember the cold floor in the church, the kneeling on the floor. There I was frightened. In the first children home, I don't think so. But, I got sick there, very sick. They were afraid that it was tuberculosis. So they sent someone to my parents to ask if there was tuberculosis in the family, what we could do. So my mother decided that she wanted to get me out. And they were then in a place, but with a family, hidden with a family, who didn't want children. They agreed that my parents would be there, but without me. When I was so sick, my mother asked again if she could take me. And then the Tante Mientje, the lady, said, I didn't want children because children walk outside and they talk. But if your daughter is sick and is in the bed, it is okay. When she will be healthy and she will out of bed, you need to have another place, because I don't want the children walk around.
Because it was so dangerous.
It was dangerous. So I came and I was with my parents for a few weeks.
And how long hadn't you seen your father?
At that time, more than a year.
And do you remember when you met him?
No, I almost don't remember. Very little pictures or feelings or thoughts about. I remember then when I was healthy, I had to leave again. But how I came there, that my mother brought me, that we went by train, that I did see my father, I don't remember. So I was 3 weeks there in bed. I was very sick. There's very bad streptococcus infection. I got it later a few times. So
Did they have antibiotics?
No.
So how did they treat it?
Just rest. They didn't. I had all kinds of side effects, but I survived. And then I had to go again to another place. And I went again to a few short time places that I don't remember. My mother told the names, but I don't. And then I went to a second children's home, together with the son of very good friends of my parents. He went to the same children's home. And we were the only Jewish children there. Also there we didn't go to school.
Do you know the name of the orphanage or where you went?
I have the name written somewhere. The home didn't have a name. The lady who ran it had a name.
And in which town was it?
It is all very close to Zeist, in the middle of Holland. That is the place near Utrecht where my parents stayed, where we stayed, where they made the most contact and succeeded. My parents told me that the head of the police of Zeist was good, and he helped. It's one of the reasons why they, after the war, wanted to live in Zeist, and they went there after the war to live there. I tried to get the name of this lady. I was there almost also a year.
And during this time, did you see your mother?
My mother, I did see the whole war from time to time. And my mother at that time worked already for the resistance. One of the big problems of being hidden is food. People got in Holland food allowance to buy half a bread.
Okay. Rationing.
But if you were hidden, you didn't exist, so you didn't have
like a coupon.
The coupons to get the food. And one of the things what the resistance did is try to get money to pay people to buy food in the black market. But my mother did take upon herself to go to farmers outside the towns, far away from towns, and she came until Friesland, in the north of Holland, to get food. And she brought food to the underground organization to give to people who were in hiding. So she was biking the whole country to look for food. That the farmers close to towns by themselves almost didn't have food. They gave people from the town food. People did buy food, and they did exchange food for jewelry and things like that. My mother with the bike went far away to get food, and one of the ways she succeeded, when my parents left Germany, I was almost 3 years, and they expected to have more children, and my mother did buy a lot of baby clothes and children clothes when she was in Germany and sent it to Holland with our routine.
Like
Furniture. And when they went in hiding, for sure they couldn't take the furniture, but she did take the clothes. And one of the things she could get food for was for these clothes, because the farmers were in need, their children, their daughters, of clothes for babies, and there was very little clothes for babies. So she succeeded to get a lot of food for these clothes. Now, in driving through Holland, she could also visit me. And she did speak German, of course, because she had blonde hair. I had black hair, but she had by herself not blonde hair, but also not black. And she could look like a German girl, and she made contact with German soldiers. A lot of soldiers were not Nazis, and she got help of German soldiers to travel around, and, she was very, she said, if I will die, I did do good things. They will pay for it. Well, she didn't die. But she saved me by bringing me all the time from place to place, and also to bring food to the places where I was and where she was, and to other people in hiding. The last half year, my parents could buy still better papers, and they succeeded to rent officially 2 rooms on these names, and then they succeeded to take me back. The last half year I lived with both of my parents in Bussum, officially in 2 rooms with an older like grandparents for me. They didn't know that we were Jews. They just rented. They thought we went from Arnhem, where there was fighting from Americans and Canadians who wanted to come in to free us and didn't succeed at that time. And that half year I went to school. In school, who was evacuated, the German used the school where I was, and they allowed the school to have classes in the synagogue in Bussum.
It was a synagogue?
It was a synagogue. So I went to Dutch school in a synagogue in the last half of the year.
Were there any other Jewish children with you?
No.
So the school was actually in a synagogue?
It was a non-Jewish school.
Did the children know you were Jewish?
No.
No.
I had papers of official Dutch papers for Christians, not.
And do you remember when you went reconnecting with your father at this time?
No.
Still not. Wow.
No. The whole period of the war, I do have very little remembrance. It is a period where I have some pictures here and there, but I have very little remembrance.
But you remember the school and going to the synagogue?
No. First of all, I didn't know what it was. I came home, I said the Germans told us to leave our school, because that happened when I was already in the school. And we will get another school, and there's only 1 room there, so every class will have school in another day. And so my mother said, "Where is the school?" And I said, "I don't know, it is a difficult name what they said." So she said, "But you have to know where to go tomorrow." And then I said, "Well, something like synagogue." And my mother told that she went under the table to laugh and cry, so that I wouldn't see how she reacted. I didn't know what it was at all. I never have been in. I come from a very liberal family. We didn't go to synagogue before the war. After the war, just as Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, 3 days Jews. And it's much later that I became Orthodox. So I didn't know what it was. Like I told you, all what I know from the war is what my parents told me. I was 9 at the end of the war. I was 6 when I went in hiding. I didn't remember my name.
But it could have been from the trauma, from the tremendous trauma.
That is what it was, from not being allowed to remember, not being allowed to talk, not to be allowed to tell. I mean, that is very clear that from that I was very little. When I was 1 year old, my mother told me, when she walked with me outside in Köln, I said, Heil Hitler, Heil Hitler. And then the Nazi soldiers spring in and said, Heil Hitler. But it was dangerous. Of course, a Jewish child was not allowed to say it. So from that, when I was 1 year old, I was told not to speak. And when we came illegal to Holland, I couldn't speak German. And then it was the beginning of the war, so I couldn't tell what happened at home. So not to speak, not to remember is a very essential thing of my youth, I think.
Can I ask, Ruth, how did your parents know not to go to Westerbork? Because many people, when they got that invitation, they did go.
I think that first of all, Jews from Germany did understand better that what happened. They did see already Buchenwald was existing. When my mother was afraid when we were sent back to Germany that they would put us in Buchenwald because it was already existing.
And there was also Dachau. Dachau was
Dachau. So I think that relative more Jews from Germany did understand that something, that it was not just talking. Then the father of this boy where I was sitting together with him, friend of my father, the four of them were talking together about hiding. And this friend said, hey, you are speaking, it will, probably it is what they say, that it is a working camp and that you can go. So I speak about before we went in hiding. And he decided he would go to Westerbork to look. And there was, I do understand, some possibility to visit people at that time still. So he went to Westerbork to visit someone, and when he came back he said, we will not go, we will go in hiding. He did speak with people, he did hear about train what was leaving, he did see how people couldn't go out, and he told my mother, you are right, we will go in hiding. So my parents went in hiding and these friends went in hiding in the beginning together. And the mother of my friend, they caught them and his mother was murdered. But it was very clear for my parents that they wouldn't go to the camp. Not freely, not from willingly.
And Ruth, that they had your names, so that's a very, very sore and a very difficult. How did they get your names? And maybe they raided the offices of the Jewish community to get the list. One doesn't really know.
Or the Jewish community. What I heard, and that is what I did grow up, I don't know, and I never did do any research about it. I don't want to know also. The Jewish community had to give names. Now, what is more normal than to give names of people you don't know? You don't give the names first of your family.
It's such a difficult decision. It's so...
So there were people that after the war we were not in contact with. Like there were Dutch people, when I did grow up, my parents said, with this child and this child you don't play because his parents were not good in the war.
Were these Jewish?
No, this is from not Jewish, but also from Jews. I did grow up knowing who in the synagogue we were not in contact with.
It must have been so difficult. It's such a hard thing. There's so many questions, and it's so...
I thought when we came to Israel, I thought to visit people, to ask. I never did it. So.
And do you remember the end of the war when liberation came?
Yes. I remember first that people ran outside, that the first tanks came in, and that my parents said, we don't go out, we wait, because they were afraid that there would still be shooting, or it would be real, or we still will not tell. Well, I didn't know about Jews. But we don't go out, that they told me. And then they did see that in the place where we were, there was no shooting, and the Canadian tanks came in, and the Canadian army, and then they allowed me to go out. And then my father asked me to go to the Canadian army camp, where they stayed in the night, the first nights, and he said, go to them and ask chocolate and cigarettes. He learned me the first two English words, chocolate and cigarettes. So I went there and I said, chocolate and cigarettes. One moment.
So you learned, those were the two words that you learned?
Chocolate and cigarettes. And this soldier did take me to the kitchen, the field kitchen. So I said again, chocolate and cigarettes. And then there was a soldier who said, are you Jewish? Well, that my father didn't teach me, so I ran home. I didn't know what to say. And I said to my father, and he gave me chocolate. I don't remember if he gave me cigarettes, perhaps, I don't know. I think he gave me chocolates. And I ran home and I said to my father, there is a soldier and he asked me something and I don't know what he asked me. So my father came with me to the kitchen, and he said, what is a soldier? So I recognized the soldier. It was a soldier from the Palestine who served in the Canadian army. And he made later the contact, or he made then the contact between my parents and their family in Palestine. My grandmother and her second husband went to Palestine. When we went to Holland, they went to Palestine. And they, for 5 years, didn't hear from us. So he sent them a telegram that we were living. So that was very special. That was a very important moment in the liberation. Next to the tanks and being happy, and then my parents had to tell the grandparents we lived with, all the people we lived with, that we were Jewish. And they found that very difficult because they endangered these people without that they did know it.
And how did they react? Were they?
And they were afraid for the reaction, and they were very glad. They said, "We are so glad that we saved you. We wouldn't have done it when we had known it, because we would have been afraid. But now we are very happy that we did do that."
And during this time, you didn't really know that you were Jewish, because
No.
it was hidden from you.
No. I also didn't want to be Jewish. Jewish is being dangerous. Jewish is being ugly. Jewish is, it did have a lot of consequences later, but I didn't know.
Wow. And did you stay in the same place after the war, or?
No, we went back a few months later. We went back to Utrecht, where we had a place to live. In the place where we lived in Utrecht, the people who lived there were Nazis, and they fled, so the rooms were free and we could get them back. And there we lived for more than a year, and then my parents did buy a shop in Zeist, where I was hidden, and they rented a house there, and there I grew up, and there I went to high school.
And what type of work did your parents do?
Yes, my father in Germany did sell furniture from the factory to the shops. I don't know how. And he did that for a factory in Czechoslovakia. And when he went to Holland, he got the allowance to sell the furniture from this factory from Czechoslovakia to Holland. But in end of 1938, Hitler went in Czechoslovakia, so there was no he lost his job. And my mother, before she married, she was the help of a dentist. How do you call it?
A dental nurse.
Yeah, dental nurse. But at that time, when you married, you didn't stay in a job, so she did do kind of social work for the Jewish community in Germany. And when my father lost his work, she started to make hats. At that time, women went with hats, and hi. She learned to make hats, and that was her work before we went in hiding and after the war. And they bought a shop to sell hats, and later it developed in a women clothes shop. They worked all the years together.
And Ruth, can I ask, what happened with the rest of your family, your uncles and aunts or your other grandparents?
My other grandparents passed away. One grandfather stayed in Germany, and he passed because he said he did fight in the First World War. They wouldn't do anything to him. He didn't want to leave Germany. And lucky enough, he passed away in 1938. My other grandmother passed away also earlier. My mother was an only child, and my father had a brother who went to Palestine, and a sister who stayed in Germany. She was married with a non-Jew. That is the uncle who brought me to Belgium. and they had only to fled Germany in 44, when also people Jews who were married with a non-Jew, the non-Jew had to separate from the Jew, to divorce, and they didn't want, and they fled to Belgium, and they were there in hiding, and they went back after the war to Germany, and they lived in Germany until they passed away.
And were you in contact with them all the years?
Well, with all the family after the war, it was quite time after the war. I speak about late 50s, that the start 60s, that we married in 57. I married in 57, and at that time there was already contact. The family could travel. In the beginning there was no money. I mean, one of the big questions is, how do you survive 3.5 years of hiding without earning? And my parents couldn't tell me how they did it.
You also had to bribe your way to get food, to pay for the people.
Yeah. And you don't earn.
And Ruth, were any of the people that hid you or your parents, were they made Chasidei Mutalam, righteous amongst the nations?
Yes, the family, the two families acknowledged by Yad Vashem. The one is the family where I was when I was sick, where my parents were hidden, and I was the time when I was very sick.
Do you remember the name of the family?
Herfst. And the other family is family Bot. Oh, now I remember also the family where I was in the last year, Van Schaik. Family Bot is a family where families with 6 children. My parents did get their address from my aunt in Germany, because they did know each other through work some way. And this family helped my parents all the time when they didn't have an address for me. I was all the time, when I went from place to place, or I had to flee from a place and could go back, they accepted me, sometimes for a week, sometimes for a few days, sometimes for 2 weeks. They couldn't have me a long time because they had 6 children and a small house and an intense community. They couldn't hide me. And I looked very Jewish. It was difficult to hide me, and my mother wanted once to make me blonde, and my hair did get green from the way she made it blonde. So when it did grow back black, I did look very Jewish. So I couldn't be free outside. So this family Bot, was a big help for my parents also when they didn't have me for long stays, because every time that was a problem, they were there. So these 2 families, we got
recognition. And Ruth, have you ever gone back to Germany? Did you?
I had one of my aunts, both of my aunts went eventually back to Germany. So we went a lot of times to visit my aunts. One came to the age of 100, so we visit her.
Did you go to your hometown ever?
One of the aunts lived in Köln, so I lived.
Was it difficult to go back, or emotional, or mixed feelings?
I don't remember anything from Germany when I was not 3, but I remember uniforms. I have a problem to go to Germany to cross the border and see people in uniform. I visited a lot of times both of my aunts, but I can't think myself of being in a holiday or something in Germany.
And look, you have a beautiful picture of your parents, if you could show. So your mother was really in the resistance, and she endangered her life to... It's amazing. That's really wonderful. And did your parents remain in Holland all their lives?
My parents remained in Holland after the war because they didn't have the energy. Before the war, they came to Holland with the idea to go to America, but they didn't get a visa to go to America before the war. So they were stuck in Holland. After the war, they didn't have the energy anymore to go to America. They didn't want to go to Israel, to Palestine. So they stayed in Holland. I have a brother and sister, and they were born after the war. They did grow up in Holland, like me. In 1975, we came to Israel, and when my parents were in need more of help, in 1982 they decided to come to Israel, and they came here and they passed away here.
And your brother and sister?
They live in Holland.
So Ruth, if I can ask, what message do you give to your family and to your children and grandchildren and to the future generations?
To the future generations. One moment.
Okay. So Ruth, I want to thank you so very much. I am so grateful, and there are no words to express my appreciation. You should just have mazel bracha and nachas from your children and your family, and Admei Vesrim to 120 in good health and just all of Hashem's blessings. But if I can ask you, what message do you impart to your family and to the future generations? Because you've seen so much in your life.
Someone told me the first 10 years of my life, he told the first 10 years of my life were very difficult, but afterwards I had a very nice life. That is something that I also can tell. I have a life with a lot of positive, wonderful things. What I should like to say in this time of this year, this moment, is I had a very special mother who did take responsibility, did fight dictature, did fight danger very openly, saved me and saved my father. We live in a time where there is loss and danger in the democracy, a danger for us, a danger in living here, and I don't know. All my life I tried to speak up for people who were in danger. I hope that my children and grandchildren and we as Israeli will fight the danger while we are living here, the danger from inside, not from the Arabs, danger in our country and our people.
Well, thank you very much, and you know, you've got to give. It's not simple, and I hear what you're saying, and if only we were more unified, and if only we could help each other more and be an example. We really must be an example. To be an example to the whole world.
First of all, to ourselves.
Absolutely.
And
well, Ruth, I want to thank you. I really do. And your mother, that she had that dream, it's miracles.
Yeah.
Literally, you're alive because of miracles.
Yeah, true.
Well, thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you.
But I'm extremely grateful to you. Thank you very much.